right. Well, I guess we're rolling now.
Okay.
And we should probably introduce ourselves.
Who are these voices?
With our first podcast, Under the Influence, episode 1. I'm Jason Knight, and I do...
Adri Stewart.
And you're Adri. And I do the night show on 101.9 FM in Morgantown, West Virginia, also known as 102 WVAQ.
Absolutely. I am the night girl on WKKW. And I just started a few months ago, so it's still fairly new, as this is.
I know. We're still learning about each other as we're doing this, so... There are going to be some secrets about to be revealed, Adri.
Skeletons in the closet? Okay.
We're going to get into all of it. The bio of the show is that everybody has their drug of choice.
Of course.
For us, the most addictive of those drugs is music.
We love music so much. It's insane.
All right, so let's jump into this. What an interesting way to kick this off on Cinco de Mayo.
Woohoo! Cinco de Mayo!
May 5th, 2020. Where we're still really in the global pandemic, coronavirus.
Right where it's about to kind of reopen and get back to whatever normal was, but not really.
Whatever our new normal is going to be.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm anxious or more nervous for that.
I'm both. And I'm wearing my mask, so I'm trying to talk as loud as I can. We're 6 feet apart. We're keeping within the parameters.
That's right. You're in a box in the other room. No, just put you in the hockey box. Penalty on Adri!
5 for fighting.
What? 5 for fighting?
Yes, you get in the penalty box 5 minutes for fighting.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going like the band 5 for fighting. I'm 15.
That's where they got their name. They love hockey.
Was it? Really? I did not know that.
Yes.
So you're going to find out fun tidbits and facts like that. We're going to deep dive every single week. That's what this podcast is about. So I think maybe we should give a little bit of a backstory on us, maybe our radio experience, the career synopsis, if you will, if you want to go first.
Okay. So I started radio in San Diego, California, and did radio there for about 10 years, then did radio in New Mexico, Duluth, Minnesota, West Virginia. So that's where I am now. And through that entire time, I've worked in different formats, like you said, top 40, country, rock. You name it, I've done it. Different types of day parts during the day, during radio. So in the morning, middays, at night, overnights.
2 questions.
Yes.
When you were in New Mexico, did you ever run into Jesse and Walter White?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Luckily, I did not meet them.
Breaking Bad fans, raise your hands.
Yes, no, I did not.
And what would you say your favorite format to work in this industry?
I would have to say country.
Yeah?
Ooh, I love old country, loving the new country, but country for sure.
That's what I love about this podcast we're doing, because we're under the influence of so much music. Mm-hmm. You know, we're definitely going to do like a 90s country episode,
please.
80s pop. We're going to
do
some segments about heavy metal. We're going to do some
hip-hop.
stuff. You're from Southern California originally, so we're going to do those SoCal vibes.
Oh, absolutely.
And then some of your classic artists like Prince and Billy Joel, Garth Brooks, which is really what about this first episode is our roots. Like, what were our first memories of hearing music?
Right, and even music that we forgot about, along the way.
And, maybe songs that caught our ears.
Yes.
Early childhood through our adolescence, what, music influenced us as kids. How big a role did our parents take, in shaping our earliest musical taste?
Yeah. So where did you begin? Where did Jason Knight come from?
Well, it started back in 1982, but 9 months before that.
Okay.
Back of a Chevy van. No,
not that far back.
Okay. Okay, so as far as like the radio career goes, started back in 2001, ended up going to school for broadcasting, and then graduated in 2003. Started out in Evansville, Indiana, Hot 96, WSTO, then bounced to my first full-time gig in Lexington, Kentucky at Hot 102. From there, spent some time in Illinois, in Decatur, Illinois, Carbondale, Illinois, and Champaign, Illinois.
Wow.
Then back to Evansville for a little while, and then through a mutual friend, heard that Nights was available here in Morgantown at 102 WVAQ.
We have a backing where we're radio DJs. We've traveled to all these different states, markets, whatever. And this is our platform to just kind of talk about our favorite music that we lost touch with, music that changed our lives, music whatever.
What were your first memories of hearing music? Like, what age do you remember like hearing sounds out of a radio and then thought, okay, hey, this is grabbing my attention?
I remember being like 7 or 8 years old. Like, my mom would listen to definitely Motown.
Oh, nice.
So she would listen to Diana Ross, the Tops, like.
Did she have a favorite?
She just loved that Motown sound, and I thought it was a really cool vibe, like Smokey Robinson.
I was getting ready to say, yeah, Tears of a Clown.
I loved it. I didn't know what it was.
Tracks of My Tears.
Yes. I didn't know who the artists were, but I knew I loved it.
Yeah. It's one of those sounds that's, what's the phrase? Often duplicated, but never.
Oh, yes. Okay, so we're saying, it's like what they say about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. Often imitated, never duplicated.
They say that about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders?
Yes. I'll explain later. I love them. Okay, so.
Oh, my gosh. You're really taking us down a wormhole already, Adri.
Sorry. Okay, so often imitated, never duplicated.
That's what, yeah.
And that's what the Motown sound is to me.
So you have all those influences, Motown mostly.
Yep. And then 80s for sure. Lionel Richie, Billy Joel.
I would say in my house, my mom and dad listened to everything. Weren't huge country music fans, even though we lived in southern Indiana.
Right.
I mean, I grew up in a town called Boonville, for crying out loud.
Oh.
Yeah. There were some that were tolerable, as my dad might say.
Like Willie Nelson, maybe Loretta Lynn.
That's even like
that's too old. I'm trying to understand.
Well, Alabama says, play me some mountain music.
Rock.
Like Southern rock.
Okay.
Leonard Skinner.
Yes.
Alabama, Molly Hatchet, Black Crowes.
Oh, okay.
So stuff like that. And then more classic rock. Aerosmith and Journey, Rush. My parents are huge Rush fans.
Love Rush.
We kind of touched on how big a role our parents played in our listening habits as we were kids, but how did that shape you, Adri, as you were growing up, like into adolescence? Like, how did what your parents listened to or their personal music taste influence yours?
I think it changed somewhere in like the mid 90s. My parents did like Boyz II Men. Then they started listening to like Celine Dion and Michael Bolton, and that's kind of like where I said, okay, I can't. I'm not saying anything about those artists, but I could only listen to them every so often.
Right.
And then I started transitioning more into like hip hop.
Well, especially living on the West Coast. I mean, you had a lot of the influential artists. You were submersed in that culture.
Yeah, we had, the West Coast vibe, Tupac and Snoop Dogg and
Dre.
Dr. Dre, of course. And so that sound influenced a lot of my upbringing.
So then once you hit your rebellious Adri phase, like what else did you start getting into? Like say like 12, 13, 14?
I would say more into like the R&B and the boy bands were a big deal.
Okay.
I'm a Backstreet Boys girl. Did like NSYNC, but more Backstreet Boys. And then Christina Aguilera had that.
You just wanted it that way.
I did. I like how you did that. Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, that sound was just so different from what we were listening to, and I appreciated it.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the dance music that you heard in the 90s, too, that kind of involved. Some people are going to say, oh, it's bubblegum pop or the bubblegum hits. But you had bubblegum pop back in, like, taking it back to the Motown era, like you were saying. Jackson 5 was bubblegum pop back then, weren't they?
Yes.
Right?
And even what was that group? Not Jodeci, but the other.
Drew Hill?
No, not Drew Hill. No.
Shout out Cisco.
The ones that sing Candy Girl. I can't think of it.
New Edition.
New Edition.
Yeah, Bobby Brown and
yes. So Bobby Brown and their group kind of influenced, NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, and what they were doing. That same kind of sound.
So, were there any other like phases that you went through?
Definitely a country phase. I was wearing the cowboy hat. I even had chaps. If you want to,
you had
I'll
chaps?
show you pictures. Cowboy boots. I was full in. So,
did you ever ride a bull?
No, but you know what? I sat on a steer, a real steer, Longhorn.
Right.
And it was alive. It was real. Every time someone sees a picture, they think it's fake. I'm like, no, this was a live animal. Huge.
Wait, you have pictures?
I do.
Okay, so we have a Facebook and Instagram and a Twitter account. We'll share those out at the end of the show. We're going to get these pictures posted up.
I'll get them.
Look for that on our social media channels. We have to see this. I can't wait.
So enough about me and my cowboy days. Now I want to know about Jason, the teenage years.
I do have a really fond early memory of being 3 or 4.
Oh.
No pictures, but I do have early memories of dancing to the Thriller album in a diaper.
Oh, pictures.
No, they don't exist. They probably do, but they're buried somewhere.
Shame.
By that association, because Michael was on like all the time.
24/7 on MTV. You could not change the channel without him on
Right.
TV.
And see, my parents, they separated and they divorced when I was 5. And when I would spend like summers with my mom, Michael Jackson dance party all summer long.
Nice.
and those kind of vibes.
Okay.
You know, like the 80s pop hits. Prince, huge mark for Prince, and we got to do it. We got to do an episode on Prince.
Love Prince.
That's coming. Grew up on the 80s pop vibes. My mom was a little bit more of a country music fan than my dad was, so listened to like the Judds. She loved Winona and Naomi Judd. Didn't really influence me, but like I guess I appreciate them more now. I'm getting down on the Judds right now. So then as I got into my teen years, I actually got into more of heavy metal. Became more of a rock
band, didn't
played
you?
A couple bands like through high school and college.
And was it heavy metal music?
Mostly.
Okay.
Metallica.
Oh yeah.
And Megadeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, more like your thrash, speed metal. And I want to say I went through a phase with it because I still appreciate it all now.
You still
I'm
like
still
it.
Such a metalhead.
Absolutely. Keeps you awake.
You know, or a lot of times, you know, what I do is to get amped up to come in and do the radio show. Like I said, I don't listen to a lot of like top 40 or pop. One of my favorite tracks is Hail to the King by Avenged Sevenfold.
And that gets you pumped.
It does. So I'll throw that on. Like if I have a few minutes before the first break on the show.
Sure.
I'm pumped up and I'm hyped up for the rest of the night.
That's what it is. Okay, I never knew what got you so pumped up before your show.
Mosh pit for one.
It is, every night.
Do our parents still introduce us or you as the listener to new music? Or are we finding it on our own? And how are we doing that in 2020?
I feel like as a broadcaster, I'm influencing my parents now on what they're listening to. And there's a lot of new country artists that they're not familiar with, like Kane Brown. I'm like, you have to listen to Kane Brown. He's so good. And so I'm kind of doing the reverse of what they did to me when I was a kid. And it's pretty cool.
Not that you're really road tripping with your folks that much anymore, but maybe if you're all in the car together or you're spending time right now, you're supposed to be social distancing, maybe only seeing your family members.
You're kind of at their mercy right now.
Right. So but even though if you can't be with them like physically, you know, there's Zoom, there's FaceTime, there's drop-in from Alexa, there's the Google apps. There's all kinds of ways that you can stay connected. I know with my family, they still live 8 hours away in Indiana.
Okay.
So that's how we communicate with one another right now. So anytime I've discovered a new artist that I think my parents should listen to, because I know their influences. I know what they like and what they don't like. I'm going to try to turn them on to something that I know that they can vibe on. And I think one of the last bands I did that with my dad was Greta Van Fleet.
I don't even know who that is.
Okay, so they're a more modern rock band.
Okay.
But they have that throwback Led Zeppelin type sound.
And say their name again.
Greta Van Fleet.
Greta Van Fleet. Okay, I got to write that one down.
Lead singer's like a dead ringer for Robert Plant.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they got those vibes going on, and turned my dad on to them. So now he's no longer with us, but you know, up until last year, he was rocking.
That's awesome.
To some Greta all the time. Things have a really cool way of coming back around.
Yeah, it's almost like a present that you're unwrapping all the time because it's always evolving. It's always changing.
So how are we influencing the demographics now of our respective stations? Like, how would you say we're getting music out to them and turning them on?
I think a lot of different platforms, just like Facebook. I feel like every night I'm interacting with our listeners and I'm trying to get feedback from them on who they're listening to at the current moment. And a lot of them right now are really loving Luke Bryan, who's coming out with a new album in August, and I'm excited to hear it.
Right.
So I feel like Facebook is a platform, being on the radio, online. There's just so many different outlets to get that music out to people.
We get to use a lot of today's technology, social media especially, where the feedback on a song or an artist is that instant.
Yes.
You know, I know every night I ask listeners to text in. I do a download or delete feature. Play a new song, maybe a new artist, or maybe by an established artist. And I say, hey, text me your thoughts, call in on the request line, use social media, tweet at us, use Snapchat, tap download or delete on our Instagram story. So I feel like those are really cool outlets, because if you're not listening to the station at that immediate time when the song is playing in real time, then you could always kind of go back as you're scrolling through your news feeds, or you're checking out your Insta stories or your Snap stories.
And even like, I love this app, Shazam, where I'll be in a store and I'll say, well, like, what's that cool song? Like, what's that sound? I want to know what it is. And instantly you just hold your phone up and you're like, oh, I never heard of that group before.